Welcome back to Old War Stories with Uncle Jay. I think this is the 7th one I'm recording in a row of this, so I'm losing it. But I figured while I was on the subject, the last couple of Old War Stories about college, this one, which I didn't have on my list, and this list is still really long, so these Old War Stories are going to be happening for a long time. I figured while this is on my mind, let me tell it, while I'm sort of in the frame of mind. Okay. So this was again back at college, late 1990s. And I had explained in the previous Old War story about parking and the parking tickets and how you would put the ticket from the other car on your windshield and that. Okay. So there wasn't any parking, and like I explained in that, you had the lot that I would go to that you could never get a spot at, and the other lot, which was like a mile and a half away, that was out of the way for me, not only to drive there, but to the buildings that I needed to go to, so it wasn't really an option. So I was stuck in this lot. Oh, man. Well, there were a couple of stories. This is sort of like a 3-in-1, so we'll start with the first one, of the Volvo that didn't start. I come in, all of this was with my old Chevy, because that's what I had, and I had to get to class. So I'm driving up and down, and there's not a damn spot to be found, and I'm going to be running late, like now. This kid is walking. And I see him walking, and I roll the window down. Yeah, I rolled the window down. I had crank windows. That was the thing. I roll the window down. Are you leaving? Yeah, I'm right down over here. Okay, so you just kind of follow him in your car, just creep along, whatever. And he had this Volvo. 1980s Volvo station wagon. So he says, yeah, I'm down here. I don't know if my car is going to start, though. Well, you got it here. Like, what do you mean it's not going to start? He just, like, knew. So anyway, I got my blinker on, and I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. And he gets in his car, and he turns the key. And for whatever reason, the exhaust on this car shook when the engine was cranked. Maybe all the time. Maybe shit was broken. I don't know. But anyways, he's cranking the thing, and I see the muffler, blah, 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 blah. And he's trying to start it, and trying to start it, and trying to start it, trying to start it. It's not starting. And I gotta fucking get to class. I'm late now. And there's no other damn spots, because I circled this lot 3 fucking times. So he gets out, he's like, it's not starting. I said, maybe I could help you? He says, if you want. We open the hood. He gets some oil out of his trunk. Like that's going to fix anything. That wasn't the first time I've seen that in my life. But I had him crank it, and it would crank. It just wouldn't fire. And I said, listen, man, I'm late. Good luck. And I gotta go. He's like, all right, thanks anyway. And I don't know what he did and what happened with that, but I eventually found a spot somewhere, showed up like 10 minutes late for class. Totally uncharacteristic of me. Didn't pass that class. Wasn't a class I wanted to take, but had to. Didn't really have to do with computers either. And I wasn't going to pass that class even if the lateness wasn't an issue. Because that teacher said that like 85% of your grade relied on class participation, but she had her teacher's pet. So when she would ask a question that the class is supposed to answer, this kid knew all the answers somehow. I don't know. He was just into this philosophical bullshit. I had to take philosophy. What does that have to do with computers? I don't know. But it was some shit like that. Whatever the fuck. So she would always call on this kid, and 95% of the class did not pass this class because he did. And there was nothing you could do. You were just out the money for that, and fuck you and die. The teacher had been there for so many years, tenured, not ever losing her job. So that was that. Next one. The girl, actually there's a fourth one. I'll tell that one now. Nassau Community College was right out of high school. Now when you're in high school in senior year, you could, in my school, you could have a car. Not too many did, but some did, and they were the cool kids who had a car. And, you know, oftentimes you'd graduate from high school and you'd go to college and that was your car, so you were driving it. It was your first car. If it ran, you drove. That was that. So here's this girl that had a Jeep. Don't know what it was, how old or new it was. Wasn't that new, but it was a manual. And it seemed like she had just gotten this car, or her parents just got her this car, like 2 days before college. She had a license. I'm sure she knew how to drive. Probably not well, but that has nothing to do with it. But it was a manual. And there are girls who know how to drive manuals. I know how to drive manual. But not too many girls did. There were some. Not unheard of at all. Some of them were quite good at it. The guys are all like, bitch doesn't know how to shift, you know. I can fucking power shift this thing. Blah, blah. Blow it out your ass. Your dick isn't as big as you think it is. So there were some girls who were good at it. She wasn't. And I'm walking back to my car, which was fucking out in the boondocks somewhere. And there were like 3 stop signs along the way where I'm walking. And she pulls up to one and doesn't depress the clutch and stalls the Jeep. Turns the key. Okay. And now the way it's supposed to work is you step on the gas a little bit just to get the revs up. You're on the clutch, you're in gear, and you let off the clutch slow until the car starts moving. And you just let out nice and slow and easy, and you go to accelerate until it's time to shift. You let off the gas and step on the clutch. You shift your gear into the next one, and you do the same kind of motion back and forth. After the car gets moving out of first gear, you don't have to be as ginger with the clutch, and you wouldn't just like fucking pop your foot off of it and quote-unquote pop the clutch like that, but you could do it a lot faster. She couldn't get this thing even moving. So she stalled it again. Now she steps on the gas. Starts letting off the clutch. Installed it like 4 fucking times. And I remember hearing that, and she said, "Damn it!" I remember hearing that, and just kept stalling at every stop sign. It was awesome. Well, anyway, that was that one. Next one was another girl driver. It's actually even a 5th one. But we'll tell that another time. I think that's actually on the list. Sorry about the abrupt cut. Had to change batteries on the camera because I've obviously been recording too much. Okay, anyways, so the next one in the parking lot at college was a time where, again, you know, needed a spot, none to be had. This was an everyday thing. Every day. It got so bad that you didn't want to leave for lunch because you'd never come back and get a spot. It was bad. So I'm driving around, and I'm down in like the fucking 15th row, as far as you can get. And this girl found like the last possible spot in this lot. It was like the farthest, endest one you could possibly get. And I'm willing to take it. Because there was nothing. So, you know, roll the window down. Are you getting out? Yeah. Okay. So she gets in her car and she starts backing out. Now, for some reason, even though the lot was like square, this last spot, they had one of those concrete barricades, and she wasn't a good driver and started backing out and backed into this concrete barricade. So then she said, oh shit, that was bad, and pulled back in the spot and tried pulling out the other way. Now, really, the only way she could possibly get out of this spot, the barricade was like at this angle, and she was in the last spot, so she had to like back up, and she hit the thing to go this way. You can't do that there because of the way this barricade was. So she would have to back out and kind of like back out past me and somehow turn around in there. But this just didn't apply. So I saw her hit this barricade like 3 times. I said, okay, I'm done. And I don't know where I got a spot somehow after that, but I remember that one. And the last one now that I kind of don't want to tell, but I'll tell it because it's water under the bridge and nothing really happened. So again, you know, I'm in my old Chevy, and I was leaving. So I got in the car, started it up, I backed out. Now, you had all these rows, and then there was a road that went so you could exit the parking lot. Well, because a million people were leaving at the same time, the aisles would fill up. And you often couldn't even back out of your spot if you're down toward the road. So you couldn't even back out of your damn spot, and nobody wants to let you in. And you'd get cars 5, 6 deep. So I'm sitting there, and I'm the last car. And don't remember what time of year it was, but it was the time of year where I guess it was kind of like fall. So in the morning it's cold, you need a jacket, but by the afternoon you didn't. So I had, in this car, the radio that was in the dash. GM, in their infinite wisdom, decided to mount this radio vertically. And we were too cheap to get, and or couldn't find a radio that would fit this. These are the old style radios that have the 2 knobs. One was power and volume, and the other one you'd tune it with. But there was nothing. And these knobs that came out of the radios, they had like 5 different positions. So you could widen them or narrow them to make it fit your car because they were all aftermarket radios. Well, anyways, long and short of the story was I had this radio that I had bought at a place called National Wholesale Liquidators many years back. And I wanted it because it was digital. I wanted a digital radio, but after I got it, I was dismayed that it actually wasn't. It was, but it wasn't. Okay, now the old radios had a slider. I think even millennials know what this is, where there's that knob you turn and there's this little pointer that goes up and down the scale there. It's called a slider. This radio did not have that. It had these 4 buttons that would light up in green. I don't know, one was power. I don't remember what the other 3 did. Didn't matter. And it looked cool when it was on and all lit up. I remember that. And when it was off, it had a digital clock on there, and it would show the time. And you had little buttons that you'd set the time and that, and it was nice. But because the radio didn't fit in the dashboard, the only place that we could mount this thing was under the glove box on the passenger side. So that meant that if you wanted to change the volume or change the station on the radio, that was not a possibility while you were driving. You had to wait for a traffic light. So anyway, I had essentially the same thing of this 6 cars waiting there to turn out. And like I said, it was digital, but it wasn't. See, what they did in this radio was it was a cheap shit radio. I think I paid like $20 for it. And it actually lived on later on. I'll get to that. This radio had the tuning knob, but when you would turn it, instead of there being the slider, the clock, which was normally there, would now display the frequency, the station that you were tuning in. And as you tune it in one way, the numbers would go up, and the other way would go down. Well, the way they did that was they used some sort of rotary encoder that would tell the display to increase the numbers or decrease the numbers or whatever, and it never tuned in right. If I wanted 95.5, it was 95.6 or 95.4 or something. So it wasn't ever exact, but it was close enough. But the problem is the way the actual tuner worked is it's, I think, a variable capacitor of some kind. It has all of these metal plates that are meshed within each other like this. And as you turn the knob, it slowly turns these plates more and more in or more and more out. And somehow that would tune the station in. I don't know how it works, but that's what it was. Remember how I said it was fall and it was cold in the morning, but it was warm in the afternoon? So I had one of those days where I'd get there in the morning and leave in the afternoon. So in the morning I started the car up, and the radio, I remember, was tuned in. I had it on. I drove in. It was fine. Then the car sits there, and the sun was out that day, and the inside of the car gets warm. Not hot, it wasn't that time of year, but it was quite warm. And I'm sitting there waiting, and the radio goes out of tune, because when you heat metal, it expands, and when you cool metal, it contracts. And that would cause the station to just drift out, just 0.2, 0.3 out from the frequency you wanted, and you'd get static. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, let me tune it in. And I go and I reach down and I feel a bump. I don't know what happened, but I look up and I'm on the guy's bumper in front of me. So I think what happened was I got pissed off that the radio wasn't tuned and the car was still in drive. And I guess as I reached over, my foot let off the brake enough that the car started creeping forward and just bumped into the guy. But I'm not actually positive that happened, because I put the car in park, I got out, he got out, and I said, what just happened? He says, I don't know. I said, did you back up or like what? He says, I don't know. He didn't know if he backed up. What? Okay, so maybe I wasn't at fault for this and he did back up? I don't know, but the bumpers are together, and I said, all right, let me back my car up. So I throw it in reverse, I back up a couple of feet. We look, there's no damage to anything. Sorry that happened, and I'll see you. And that was that. And we just went on. The radio, like I said, actually ended up living on. Long story. My dad used to have an 87 Nissan Sentra. It came with a nice Kenwood radio with a cassette player. And someone in a dark blouse decided they liked the radio better than he did. So it was stolen. And he got this piece of shit radio that also was like kind of cool. It had like meters that would go out with the sound as, you know, the music would go. So it was like kind of nice to look at in that. And I always liked that radio, but he said it's just not the quality of the other one. And it wasn't. But it did the trick. It was just his car to go to work and back. So whatever, it worked. And that actually did have true digital tuning. But what happened was one winter, we had a really bad winter, and his door froze. So he couldn't get in his car. So he went over to the passenger side, and he was able to get that door open, and then he had to climb over the center console because this was a little Jap car from the 1987, so it didn't have bench seats. That just wasn't a thing in Jap cars like that. And somehow, as he went over to the driver's seat, he ended up kicking the radio, the rightmost knob, the tuning knob, and it fucked something up in the radio. So, like, only the left speakers would work or only the right speakers would work. Some days it wouldn't work at all, and you'd hit it and you'd wiggle it and play with it. I think he one day actually took it out of the car and opened it, and like a circuit board was cracked and he wasn't able to repair it, so he just lived with it. And it just got worse and worse and worse as time went on. And finally, it just quit altogether. Through some chain of events, the Whiff's father's car was hit by another car and was still drivable, but the passenger side door didn't open anymore. So he decided to get rid of it for whatever reason. It was like an old Delta 88, I think a 1983. I don't remember much else about it. I remember it ran really quiet. Really quiet. It was nice. I never was in it for a ride, but I saw it a few times. And he had an aftermarket radio in there that was made by Spark-O-Matic. That was a name back in the day. And I got tired of this radio because of what happened, and he gave me that radio because he was getting rid of that car, and this had true digital tuning and everything, so I'd never have to worry about this again. So I installed it, and the way we installed it is you put it up under the glove box, and there were cable ties holding the thing in place, and all kinds of great shit, but we made do. And I had that, and my dad had mentioned that the radio in his Nissan went out, and it wasn't working. I said, I have my old radio, if you want it. He said, does it work? I said, yeah, it works. I got a radio from Patty's father, so I don't need it anymore. He says, and it works? I said, yeah, it works. I said, but it's got manual tuning, so, like, it'll drift out of station and you'll have to play with the knob to get it to tune in. He said, fine for me. That works fine. And in his car, it would mount normally, like in the console there, and he actually swapped that radio in and used that till he got rid of the car and sold it to a friend of mine, and it went with the car, and I didn't want the radio back. And somewhere that Spark-O-Matic radio might still be around, but I think it lived outside too long, so it probably doesn't work anymore. But, yeah, that haunted radio and all the trouble it caused. Couple other real quick ones while I'm on the subject of old college days things. One time I was sitting in my old Chevy and I said, oh, the parking brake has got to work in this thing. And I decided to try it. And it had kind of worked or something, but I forced it a little too much. And something snapped. The cable snapped, and it had like a bolt or something at the end of it, and that was dragging under the car. So I drove that all the way home, and every time I'd hit a bump in the road, it would like kick up and hit the bottom of the car. And that was the end of the parking brake on that car. We just didn't use it, and it didn't work when we got it, really. We had it kind of working a little bit once, but that broke. Then there was another time where the brakes didn't feel right, and the master cylinder had given out. I might have told this story, I'm not sure, but basically there's a red light up ahead, I'm doing 30, whatever, you know, and you start stepping on the brake a little bit. You're slowing down to get up to the red light, you know, and the brake pedal would just go right down to the floor, and you didn't stop. But if you just jabbed it, it would stop. So really what I had to do was like get all the way up there and just, you know, like stop on a dime kind of thing. And I limped it home that way. And then there were other times where another driver in college, this happened actually twice, two different things, and then a third one, which was interesting. One was on the campus in the parking lot. Somebody asked me what time it was. Okay, maybe the clock in their car didn't work. We didn't have phones like today, so that was a thing. And so maybe that was a valid thing. And then I had somebody else on the road ask me what the date was. at a red light. That was odd, coming home from college. And there was one other time where somebody asked me to roll the window down and asked if I had any weed. Nope, didn't have any of that. But that brings us to a close on this old war story. So I thank you once again for watching. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.